Welcome. How was the long weekend? Any feedback? We shouldn't say feedback at a diet program, eh? Any reporting back? I want to encourage you again to be on our Facebook pages, BetYaLife. Feel free to comment, ask your questions there. I'd like to encourage a bit of chatter. How many of you get anything that I put on Facebook? Some of you. Okay, thanks, all three of you. So there's lots of stuff posting there. This weekend I became very famous indeed because I made a bone broth. So how many of you know what bone broth is? Have you heard of bone broth? So bone broth is what you get when you boil, in this specific case, let's say go backwards, broth. A broth is something that you get when you boil something to the point that the goodness or the nutrients of the food are no longer in the food itself, but are boiled into the water. So it gets boiled very slowly over a long period of time. So 24 to 48 hours worth of cooking. You use something called a crock pot, or an earthenware pot is the best way to do it. But if you don't have that, any old pot will do. I use a pressure cooker that doesn't have a cap on it. And essentially, the idea behind bone broth is that a lot of the minerals and nutrients that we take in capsule form are synthetic things that are made in factories. And they're extracted or they synthesize, they create it. So they plasticky, synthetic. Your body is best designed to absorb its nutrients in a natural food form. So we're supposed to get nutrients from the food that we eat. But we'll go through some of that tonight of why that's a bit of a problem. So we compensate for it by taking supplements, multivitamins, minerals, multiminerals, omega oils, probiotics, and we take them all in a synthetic form or in a concentrated form or in a tablet or capsule or fluid or liquid form. But none of those actually get absorbed as well as the nutrients do straight out of our food. So the best time to absorb something is with carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. A lot of the vitamins that you have to absorb are fat soluble. So if you don't have enough fat, it doesn't get absorbed. If your body has a problem breaking down or absorbing fat, it doesn't get absorbed. If there's not enough nutrient or mineral in the food, it doesn't get absorbed. If you don't have the proper pancreas enzyme function, it doesn't break the food down properly, you don't absorb. If you don't chew your food properly, it stays in a fiber form of the food. So a lot of your seeds are like that. They're very richly stocked with nutrients, but if you don't chew them or break them down or crush them, it doesn't get absorbed. So you can think you're eating an amazing diet, good food, clean food every day, lots of effort, I buy fresh stuff, I buy whole stuff, but unless you're taking specific trouble to buy quality food, you actually might be kidding yourself into not getting the nutrients that you expect to be getting from the food. So when people ask me, do I need vitamins as a supplement, then my general answer is yes. Most of us don't eat clean. We don't eat amazingly every single day. We eat amazingly some days, and I know those days because when you visit me, those are the days you always tell me about. How awesome you were, got up at 5, went to gym, whipped up this thing, started the bone broth early in the morning so that the next morning be perfectly ready. So bone broth, I'm going to talk a bit more about the nutrients, so that's what tonight's topic is about. I want to talk about these little things in your foods, where we're getting them, what they're doing, why we need them. The brothy thing, I have tried it twice already. The first time I rather forgot about. This time I bought a bag of bones, just from a normal butcher. Now you can use, the better the quality of the bone and the better the quality of the animal that it came from. So the more natural or pasture-raised or felt or grass-fed, the better the nutritional value even of the bone. So the healthier the bones of that animal are going to be. By boiling it for 24 hours, you boil all the elements, all the minerals, all the nutrients out of the bone into the liquid around the bone. You throw in 1 or 2 vegetables, and then after 24 hours, you pour off the water, which has got a lot of fat in it by that time. As it settles, it leaves a nice big layer of fat if you leave it to get hard, but underneath it, it leaves something which can remain fluidy, but if it's still got a lot of fat in it, it becomes gelatiny-like. So now some of you might have heard of people who take gelatin as a supplement. So you can buy gelatin. It's supposed to be good for your joints, good for your muscles. So a lot of people who have arthritis or inflammation problems are told now to have gelatin. You know, you buy things like ArthroChoice, ArthroGuard. These things contain substances called glucosamine and chondroitin and MSM. These are all things that are supposed to lubricate your joints and increase the health of your joints. To varying degrees of success. So some people will have amazing results with these things and feel amazing, and some people will just feel nothing, and some people will even feel tired from them. So the broths overlap a little bit. They create a food, it's like a soup, that you can drink that's a very salt-rich, very magnesium-rich, very calcium-rich liquid in a natural formulation that is optimized. It's at its best. It's in its best state to be absorbed. Because one of the problems that you guys should have if you're banting or you're on a low-carb, high-fat diet is that we see those people start to have low levels of potassium, low levels of sodium, so you start to become a little bit depleted in some of your minerals. A lot of people fall into the trap of actually starting to have too few vegetables overall because they're such a difficult list to follow. I don't know if you've noticed that. You tend to just, you have your coconut, you have your avo, you tend to forget about the vegetables because you're not sure which ones you can and can't have. And really, there's very few of us that like a plate full piled of green leafy things. Men mock those things a lot. So remember the rabbit food and the bunny food diets. Men don't like eating green stuff. Children don't like eating green stuff. Green stuff is often bitter, and we're going to talk a little bit about that just now. Why is it bitter? Why is something that tastes so bad supposed to be so good for us? Why can't all the good stuff taste like vanilla ice cream? And this is a big problem. This is a big problem. And the way that the human beings have developed their eating habits over the centuries has very much been guided by this very basic thing of the taste of the food. Your children are the best at it. They eat stuff according to one very simple principle. Does it taste nice? That's it. We are completely confused. So we like to think, yes, I eat something nice, but we have this rule. You've heard yourself say this. If it tastes so good, there's probably something wrong with it. If it tastes so good, it's probably going to make me fat. And I need to eat this other stuff because it's healthy for me, even though I don't really like it. Okay, so you've all been down this thing. You've heard yourself say that. So we kind of have this weird sense of balance that we must maintain. But we don't actually know what that balance is, because without us actually realizing it, we've been told what that balance is. So I don't think that in the caveman days, they used to have little conferences, and they used to have 20 cavemen sitting there, and the head caveman used to drag his wife over and say, tell them food, how you eat this stuff. Because they didn't really talk about food. I don't think they talked about how you're going to eat. There either was food, and then you ate it, and when you had enough food, you stopped eating it. That was kind of like, Weight Watchers. How does that work? Well, when you see it, you eat it. And when it's finished, you stop to eat it. Then, well done. It's a 12-week course. And it wasn't popular. There was no Facebook. I don't know what they had. Rockmail. I don't know. So it's just retarded to think that people have told us what we should eat, and we all end up in a room like this wondering what we should eat. We're all guessing every day. We have no idea. So we kind of concoct things that we feel are healthy. But the truth is, if I asked every single person in this room to stand up and tell me what you think is a healthy meal, we'll have 20 different opinions on what's healthy. And if you ask your mother what she thinks is healthy, it's different from her mother. And it's different from your children who want to believe very much in Coke and ice cream and things. So we've come to a really difficult place in the history of food. Our food decisions are made for us by economies, superpowers, politicians, agriculture. What you don't realize is that you eat foods grown in a certain way because of what the government subsidizes that needs to be grown. So we can make money from growing millies, so we must grow millies. Then we feed our cows millies and we make sure that there's lots of millies around. You don't even realize how much millies you're eating, but almost every bite of beef you take has been produced or grown from a millie, because all our cows are fed lucerne and corn. Then you've got wheat that is in absolutely every type of food you have. Fantastic, but nutrient poor. Very, very poor nutrients. So to make up for that, we add vitamins back into it. So we call it fortification. So when ProNutro says with added vitamins, the reason they say with added vitamins is because what they're not allowed to say is we took all the vitamins out in the first place. So now they sound like heroes because they're adding vitamins. Meantime, there was no vitamins there. They completely destroyed the nutrients in their food. They were told by, it's an interesting story if you want to really read that, they were instructed by government to introduce minerals and vitamins into the foods, but it affected the tastes of the food sometimes. So they started to put a health spin on it, not ProNutro as such or Bocomo, but some of the bigger ones. Kellogg's was one of the first ones. They started to put a spin on foods to try and sell it to you like a health food. So we all like to buy food that's organic because we think it's healthy. We were told that fat-free food is good, so we thought it's healthy. We were told that if it's vitamin enriched, it's healthy. We were told that if it's fresh and green, it's healthy. We were told if it's yogurt, it's healthy, and we raise our children on yogurt very happily. I've never heard a mother come into my room and say, I give my child a cup full of Neapolitan ice cream for breakfast every morning. I'm such a good mother. But because what we think ice cream is bad for you, but yogurt is good for you, so we're happy to give yogurt. Purity is good or bad for you, but it's got lots of vitamins in it, so it's good for you. But we're not sure now, and obviously, wasn't it? Isn't it good for you? Well, how did they make purity? Where does it even come from? Do you know how much sugar and salt is in purity? You wouldn't feed your children purity if you ever went to a factory that made baby foods, because you don't even know when that food was made. So we have a problem with the food that we eat. So I want to talk about this chemistry of the food. What is in the food? What's making up the tastes that we taste? What's making up the nutrients and the mineral and the nutrient, the micronutrient value? So last week we talked about what's your food made of, and we talked about these carbohydrates, the proteins, and the fats. And this week you all went and you bought yourself omega-3s, and you stopped using margarine properly now. And you don't use cooking oil for anything ever again. Yeah? Okay. And you're not sure about fiber anymore, if you're supposed to or not supposed to. So the Kellogg Special K sits there, and now you look at it because it looks so healthy. Tell me all grain doesn't look healthy. Tell me it doesn't taste healthy. How can something that bad not be healthy for you? It must be good for you. We have learned, and I read an interesting thing yesterday as well, about how having proteins in your diet, more than 20% of your diet has zero value whatsoever. Your body literally cannot use more than 20% of its entire calorie volume as protein. So we're talking about 100 grams of protein a day is probably enough to live on. Now, I don't know when last you had a 100-gram rump steak. Yeah? The waiter would have just said, so it's not actually worth my while to carry that out here. Why don't you just lick my finger for a while? It's just, I'll dip it in the sauce. And, if you like the ladies' rump, that's a pinky. And we hardly need any protein. But what a lot of us end up doing when we go on paleo diets and high-fat diets is we actually end up eating a lot more protein. So a lot of people who struggle with this diet, there's two real big problems, and that's what I hope to identify for you tonight. There's two mistakes we make. One is we don't increase the proteins as much as we we don't increase the fats as much as we increase the protein, which actually puts a load on our system, which actually causes a kind of a stress on our system. Protein is very hard for our body to digest, it puts a strain on our kidneys, it increases blood pressure, and if the Chinese are to be believed, they did the world's biggest trial, 800,000 people involved in a trial to see what causes cancer across China. And the only thing, I think they looked for it specifically, but the thing that was the most consistent definer of cancer was how much protein the people had in their diets. So the provinces that ate less than 5% of their total carbohydrate as protein had the lowest cancer rates. And the provinces that ate more than 20% of their total calorie intake as proteins had the highest cancer rates. So it was really interesting research that was done. It was a study called the China Study. Maybe you've heard of a book like that. It's also a very boring book to read because it sometimes feels like they're going through each of the 800,000 people one for one. But so 800,000 people get tested. It was decreed by the emperor. He wants everyone tested because his mother died of cancer, and he decided, that's it. No more cancer in this country while I'm the emperor. Go and tell me why. And he employed all these people to go around the country and like a census, but they looked at what people were doing. What was their activities? What were they eating? What was their staple foods? What did they add to it? What did they remove from it? What was the processing of the food? And the thing about China that's very unique is that the people don't move around China. Apparently, if you grow up in a certain province, you die in a certain province. People, I don't know when last you heard of somebody who immigrated to China. Anybody? 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 No. So you don't actually find so many like Nando's, in the China place. Not so much like is there a town that you can think of there's no Chinese place? Of course not. That's silly. Is it weird for you when you go into a Chinese place and the person serving you is not Chinese? It's like, aren't there enough of you? Can you just spare one so it can be like a real Chinese experience? It's like going to an Indian restaurant and not being served by an Indian. It's just weird. So, and that doesn't mean like, come from Lordam. It's just, that's not such a good joke in Cape Town. Do you know where Lordam is? It's like in the Indian community. So we want Indian people to come from India. Then that's our real Indian food. So the China study and protein. I just didn't tell you that last week. So protein's killing you. Did anybody have any doubt? Are we over that now? Okay, so 20% of your food. Yeah, let me let you off the hook. If you have 100-gram lamb chop, now I'm going to make up numbers here, but they're more or less right. 100 grams of lamb chop that say you cut the fat off the side of the lamb chop that you can see. The percentage of the protein in that lamb chop, you'll be happy to know, of the 100 grams, probably only about 60 grams, maybe less, is protein. 40% of that lamb chop, what you think is meat, is fat. Okay, how do you know the difference? Is the longer you cook the meat, the more it shrinks down and down and down and down. What's left after a long time of cooking, that's probably the protein, less the water, less the carbohydrate, less the fat. So we all know, anybody who's ever made biltong can already tell you how much you start with a pile of meat like this and you end with a little droeworsie. Okay? And it's the same on a fire. You put that meat on the fire and it just shrinks away and shrinks away and shrinks away because the water's being pushed out, the fat's burning off, dripping out, and what's left is the protein. So protein's actually very little. So there's the good news, is when I said to you don't have more than 100, and I'll push it up to 200 grams of protein a day, it's actually still quite a lot of food because it's actually quite hard to get that amount of protein in because most of your stuff is mixed. Most of the food we eat is carbohydrates. So we've all grown up eating 60 to 70% of our food is carbohydrates, wheat, rice, pronutro, wheat pix, only a little bit of protein. So we're kind of used to that. So what's in all these foods that we have? We have man-made chemicals. When a baby is born, there was a test done on a baby's umbilical blood. So they drew blood out of this baby's umbilical cord and they tested how many chemicals were in that thing. In a newborn baby, they found 205 chemicals man-made in a newborn baby. So that's stuff that mother has been exposed to, that has been absorbed into her system and has transferred through that baby and is having an influence on that baby's health at birth. I've heard a quote on how many chemicals women are exposed to. So between deodorants and creams and clothing, toothpastes, shampoos, body soaps, lotions, creams, oils, it's something in the hundreds of chemicals that you're exposed to on a daily basis, most of which have been made by synthetic chemicals. So there's a lot of chemicals in the environment which our body has to get rid of all the time. And this is what's happening here. So let me take you back one step. When I talk about the human body, I often talk about a car. I compare your body to a car. It's just nice because it's got lots of different parts, lots of working things. So here's the car thing. The carbohydrates of your car is the petrol in the tank. It's the stuff that burns when the car is driving. Very important. When the car doesn't drive, you don't need a lot of petrol. Okay? The proteins of the car is the body of the car. It's the metal, it's the doors, it's the engine. This is the protein. The fats of the car are the seats and the sound system and the air conditioning and the comfort, the look and the feel, the niceness of the car. So that's the little frills in your car. It makes you feel nice. The fiber, I haven't worked out. Let's make it the tires. I'll think just now for a reason for that. So that's your car, okay? So you've got the body of the car. So most of us can think, okay, now that's the car. We pay a lot of attention to that car. We fill the car with petrol. We check the water in the car. We check the dents on the car. So we have the car spray painted and fixed. We fix tears in the seat. We make sure the steering is aligned. We make sure the tires are in good shape. So we pay a lot of attention to the car that we can see. But but this part of the car. So the vitamins would be the grease in the bearings of the car. Now most people are already like, that's the stuff that when you open that front part of the car. So when all those things are turning, they need grease. They need oil to make that machine turn. If you have a perfect car with enough petrol, a good body, but you don't put oil in the car, you don't grease the bearings and the wheels and all the different parts of it, the engine doesn't work properly. Now, a lot of us spend a lot of time talking about the car and spend very little time talking about the parts that make it work easily. So a lot of us get stuck paying so much attention to carbohydrates, proteins, and fats that we forget about the water, the oil, and the grease, which are these things. The truth is that if you want your car to work, this is the place you might be missing it. If you feel like you're doing everything right, but it's not happening for you. I tried this diet, I just feel tired. I tried this diet, my bowels stopped working. I tried this, but my memory, my hormones, my cycles. Maybe this is the car that you try to ignore. No? Most of us try to ignore this part of the car. We just don't like to know that it's actually there. And this is what we want to talk about, the grease. So have I shown you this video before of all the different parts of the body? The body, so this is your car now, I'm talking about the body of my car. What's your food made of? All these different sections. Then we change it all and we process it into a way so that you can taste it, eat it, transport it, flavor it, heat it, cool it, store it, freeze it, send it to overseas, eat it in winter even though it grows in summer. So we process our foods, put it into boxes so that you can pour it out, something that you can put boiling water over and eat in 2 minutes. This is what happens. We sometimes add a bit of fat to food, but it's not necessarily good fat. The fat that gets added to most of the foods you eat is plant oils, omega-6s, inflammatory oils, not good oils. We take phytochemicals, vitamins, minerals, enzymes destroyed in any processing. As soon as you start to change the shape of something, as you pick it, it starts the process. If you play with it in your hand, you damage the nutrients. If you transport it, the nutrients start to biodegrade. So you start to lose nutrients almost immediately. If an orange is picked off a tree and is allowed to sit on a table, the vitamin C in that orange starts to biodegrade. In other words, it starts to break down. So that in theory, it's possible that an orange kept in cold storage can lose all of its vitamin C. So you can eat an orange that has no vitamin C in it. And how many of us eat oranges because we think it's good for our colds and flu? A nachi has only got half the amount of vitamin C that an orange has got in. A lemon has got a lot, surprisingly. Grapefruit has got a lot. Guava's got a lot. But we don't always think about that. Grapes have got a lot. Broccoli's got a lot. Broccoli, yes. I was going to say brinjal, broccoli. So there's vitamin C everywhere, but it gets destroyed when things have to wait a long time before we eat them. Fiber is removed from food because of the taste that makes it hard to eat. Carbohydrates, we add to food, gives shape, gives structure. We like our carbohydrates. Protein, the protein hasn't changed much over the years. So like I said, before we used to eat a lot of carbs, about 20% protein. Still, even with all the diets around the world, it's about the same. We change everything. We end up with a new food that you're going to eat. But the thing that's missing from all the new food, because of the way we have to eat, because of 7 billion people that have to be fed all the time, we are missing the grease and the oil and the water that makes our cars go. En ons brand vas. We sit focused on the taste and the look of the food. We talk about the percentages of this versus that, the Banting, the Paleo, the Mediterranean, the BetYaLife, but we pay too little attention to this. I have a theory that it probably doesn't matter what you eat if this part of the car is working. I have a patient who's got a bakkie that's got something like 500,000 kilometers on the clock. It looks like a bakkie that's got 500,000 kilometers on the clock and has rolled a few times, but always obviously landed on its tires. And it looks terrible, but it goes well because he has paid attention to the grease and the oil and the moving parts in the engine, because he knows that the bakkie has got nothing to do with the engine. It's two totally separate things. So he keeps his bakkie going because he's paid attention to the small bits on the inside, not the big bits. Obviously, nobody wants to drive anywhere with him, though. So let's talk a bit about the grease. So the grease is the phytonutrients. This is what makes you go. This is what keeps your immune system strong. This is what keeps your brain thinking. This is what keeps you awake during lectures that are a little bit boring in a warm room. Would anybody like some? So the phytonutrients are the parts of your food that give your food color, that give your food taste. The phytonutrients are the things in your food that make the green stuff bitter. The phytonutrients in the fruit or foods is often different from the nutrients on the outside of the food. So grapes is a good example. If you eat the black grape, the sweetness of the grape is inside, the flesh of it. The skin is not nice to eat. So children, we used to pop the grapes into our mouth because the skin is horrible. You wouldn't just sit and eat a pile of grape skins. But the joke is, have you heard of grape seed extract? So grape seed extract is an awesome antioxidant. It's a medicine. A lot of people use it. But it's in the seed. It's not in the fruit. There's a little bit of it in the skin, and there's a little bit in the seeds, but there's hardly any of this extract or this nutrient in the actual flesh of the grape. So the truth is, the part of the plant we often throw away is the part that has the most benefit for us, because we can't use it. If you think about grains that we eat, I think we said last week, if you eat a full grain or whole grain bread, what happens to the grains? It just passes right through your system, because that's what grains were designed to do. Pass through your system to get planted somewhere else. So you can germinate them or grow them, and then you can eat them. Bamboo shoots, sprouts, things that were seeds that have started to grow. That's where you get your best nutrient value, not because there's something there that wasn't there before, but now you can get to it. Your body can eat it. Your body can swallow it and digest it and absorb it. So sprouted foods is probably your most nutritious kind of food. The phytonutrients all have their own characters and qualities, and you can pretty much tell what's in a plant by the color of the fruit or the vegetable. So it has a lot of something or a little of something depending on the color of the fruit or vegetable. So one of the things you've got to be, if you look at somebody's unhealthy diet, remember I showed you last week a picture of a plate of fried foods, golden brown. You can start to tell the health of the food by looking at the color of the food and the color spread of the food. We all choose food that way. We choose meat because of it looks red. When the meat starts to look brown, it doesn't look so lekker anymore. Hey? But is it bad for you? We just kind of don't like meat that looks brown. So that's an instinctive thing. We just know that it's getting old or dry. We choose our fruits because they're shiny and they're bright. When it starts to look a bit wrinkled, a bit stung by insects, or not so fresh, then we think it's not so good for us. The shops know that. So that's why the farmers grow their fruits under nets and in long plastic tunnels, and they water it, and they keep the birds away, and they keep the insects away, and they kill the bugs, because they know we don't like to eat foods that have been exposed to insects and pests. But the truth is, the reason these plants have these nutrients in it, the reason they have these bitter things in it, is to keep the pests away. So if you were a worm, then you would be very sensitive, I suppose. You get spinach worms, say, and you get cauliflower worms. Have you seen broccoli worms? How many of you check your broccoli for worms? Do it. And how often do you find worms? Baya. And they come out because they don't like salt, you see? Good trick. So they like broccoli but not salt. Although if you eat a broccoli worm, in theory, it's just full of broccoli. So, in fact, it's a slightly processed form. So, the only risk would be push your protein content up a little bit high. But yes, there's a lot of worms in our food. But the truth is, the foods with pests is probably your healthier food. So an animal is going to be, have you heard stuff like that? If you come to water and there's no fish in it, drink that water. If there's no life in water, that's probably not the water what you want to drink, because life exists when the conditions are good, are ideal. If an insect eats it, if a monkey eats it, then there's not a lot of monkeys in picking. No, well, that's not necessarily true. But they're not eating the food for us. Okay. They just, yeah. So we actually, there's a company called Wild Organics. They provide what they call organic and free-range fruits and vegetables. The fruit looks terrible. It looks small. It's wrinkled. The bananas are half the size of the bananas you normally see. Everything just looks like somebody else ate it before you. But the funny thing about it is that because it's been grown with no fertilizers, no pesticides, completely organic, where they're using natural, they are probably using animal manures, but they're using cycles of growth. They're keeping the land healthy to grow natural, healthy fruits. What ends up happening is that you can have a banana that's only this big, but that's got as much value, nutrient-wise, as a banana this big that you'll get at fruit and veg. So how many times have you been to fruit and veg and you buy something that looks nice on the outside, but it's fraught on the inside? So that's because it's all about the size and the look and the color, because they know you're shopping with your eyes. Because we buy fruit like we buy cars. Nobody said, put the row of cars out there, open their bonnets, and I'm going to look at the engines and I'll decide which one is the nicest car for me to buy. We all buy these things based on how it looks. You know that judging a book by its cover thing? We absolutely eat that way. And they know it. Woolies knows you like to eat that way. That's why Woolies probably sells the least healthy foods around. Because they are selling you fruit that is perfect. In America, I'm just going to think of the state. Somewhere on the west, they grow oranges. Hopefully it comes to me before the end of the story. So this orange has a little problem. When it's ripe, the skin is not orange. It has little green marks on it. It looks like it's not ripe. And you know the Americans will not buy that orange because it doesn't look orange. So we export our oranges to America. So this state that produces something like 60% of America's oranges, not a single one of those oranges is eaten there. It's exported and they make fruit juice out of it. Because people won't buy it because it doesn't look orange. People don't buy apples that don't look big and juicy. We're attracted to big fruit. Now, have you seen those big grapefruits? Yo! And then you cut it and it's just inside there. Hello! The grapefruit. It's nutritionally valueless. There's nothing in it. But it looks big, it looks attractive, it looks juicy, it looks lekker. But it's just something that's sweet and nice, but it doesn't have value, it doesn't have grease, it doesn't have nutrient quality. So when you buy rubbishy looking fruit, so you go to these organic places, the fruit doesn't look good, but the nutrient value is far higher per gram than the beautiful looking fruit that you see on the shelves in the supermarkets. So somehow in your mind, though, it takes a little bit of work to get over it, to eat it. But there's value in it. All right. We divide the phytonutrients up into a few different colors just to make it easier, because we know each color brings a certain set of qualities to it, certain tastes and certain qualities. A lot of the food that we eat, a lot of the medicine that we make, a lot of the natural medicine that you can buy in the pharmacy has been made from these things in the plants, phytonutrients. Okay, so the phyto is plant, phytonutrient. So all those natural medicines you buy in the front part of the pharmacy, all the things the Indians used and the Chinese used and the homeopaths used too. It's all this stuff. It's phytonutrients. Because we've known for centuries, willow bark produces something that you and I know is disprin. But people have known for centuries that if you chew on this specific bark of a tree, it helps for pain. Because of the aspirin, the acetyl salicylic acid in this plant. And a lot of our plants have it. A lot of our oils have these things. So medicine comes from food, but if we do this right, your food can be your medicine as well. So food can heal you. Eating the wrong foods has made us all very sick. Eating the right foods can make us healthy again. But that's if we keep the engine healthy. So the orange foods contain a lot of these phytonutrients. I'm not going to give you this, over 10,000 of these things. So we're not going to do that. Please don't worry. We know that these beta-carotenes play a massive role in our immunity. So we've known that forever because your granny already told you to have oranges because it's good for colds and flu. The problem is your granny didn't count on the oranges coming from California and being grown 6 months ago. Because I think when your granny said have an orange, she meant the one in the garden. Go outside and pick it. And it didn't look nice and it was hard to peel. Do you remember those oranges? And it had pips in it. Remember fruit with pips? You're going to have to go and ask your grandparents. But there was a time when there was stuff in plants and you couldn't eat it. You had to like spit it out or swallow it. But now we can grow almost any fruit without a seed because we've genetically engineered it. Do you know how you genetically engineer something? You introduce DNA. DNA, what you've got in your body, chromosomes, genetics, DNA. We introduce DNA into that thing so that it can grow in a specific way, specific color, specific environment. So we can get stuff to grow in a place it couldn't grow before because we make it stronger. It can grow in a drier area. It can grow at a higher altitude. It can yield more fruit per square meter. And you know how they change the DNA? They take the DNA of bacteria and they introduce it into the cycle of that plant's life. Once you've heard of GMO foods. So this is what we're doing. We're changing the food to increase production of the food, not quality of the food, production, volume. Once we have put DNA into something, we can't take it out again. So when we create something, it's there forever. You can never undo that modification. So we eat, without you knowing it, all the corn we eat is GMO food. It's been designed to be a big kernel. They can change how many little kernels there are on a cob of corn. They can change the sweetener. Aren't you worried that you can buy millies at the fruit and veg that are all the same size? It looks like a mommy had triplets. And they're all identical. Now, how many of you have tried to grow millies before? Anybody? Or carrots? They don't grow like that. They never look like that when you grow them. But there they are. Piles, rows of them, identical. You could probably count them. So when these people farm, they farm with machines that harvest the food. So they genetically engineer the foods to grow in a very specific way, in a very specific light, with a very specific amount of water. The fertilizer and the pesticide is in the plant. You don't have to spray it on the plant. It's in the genetics of the plant. So when the worm eats the plant, it dies. It's poisonous to the worm. Don't have to spray it on anymore, but you eat that now too. So that's good if you've got worms, say. And we don't know if it's safe because nobody's ever done a trial to see if you eat genetically modified lettuce leaves for 20 years if it has any effect on your health. We assume that it doesn't. We are told that it doesn't. If you want to really be boring, you go and Google Monsanto. So they provide food. In America, you're not allowed to plant your own millies. So if you grow millies this year, you can't say, I'm going to keep a third of this harvest to grow next year. You have to get rid of all of that, and you have to buy your seeds from a corporation that provides it for you to grow genetically modified. Because if you don't, the farmer next door can sue you because your non-genetically engineered or modified foods attract pests to the area. So if he finds a worm on his GMO Monsanto corn, and he finds that you didn't buy Monsanto corn, he can sue you. The clever thing is that the government subsidizes the farmers to buy Monsanto corn. So it's just a massive, big conspiracy theory. It's better than Sherlock Holmes. It's better than a lot of murder mysteries. But these people are being told what to grow. They're being told how much of it to grow. And they're being told how to plant it and when to plant it. So in America, they alternate soya and millies. So most of your fields are growing something all year round, and they're alternating soya, milli, and they're feeding it to us. And half of us grew up thinking soya is quite good for us, didn't we? But there was a time when soya was animal food. There's very little in soya that's good for a human being. It was a wartime thing. Again, we can thank World War II for soya, because that's when they started thinking, well, we need to feed people something, and the soya grows like weeds. So we take it, now we modify it. So when you go and buy, if you buy a McDonald's milkshake, there's soya in your milkshake. You don't even know that it's there. Your hamburger that you're eating, soya. So there's soya in almost everything you eat. A lot of your foods that are now gluten-free contain soya, as though that's a good thing, no? Have you seen that? So you buy FutureLife. Anybody? FutureLife? Because why? It's gluten-free. It's wheat-free. Because it's soya full. So that's because nobody's actually caught on yet that soya is actually not that good for us either. So now we eat soya, and our men grow boobs, and our women are infertile. Maybe we win in the end. But soya is not good. It messes with our hormones unbelievably. So there's the orange foods. There's the green foods. So green foods contain specific nutrients, minerals. Probably, if you have to guess, and that's why we talk about green foods all the time. If I have to take one food group that contains the biggest variety of everything, it's your green stuff. Okay, you can't go wrong. Even lettuce. How many of you have eaten lettuce and said, what's the point of lettuce? Okay, nutritionally from filling you, 0. But from an antioxidant and a nutrient perspective, loaded. Your leafy greens are full. And you know how you can know if it's good for you? The more bitter the taste, the more nutrients are in. Do you think it's an accident that you like a certain kind of lettuce and not the other kind? Do you know why you like one and not the other? It's because of the sweetness of the lettuce. So, unfortunately for us, the sweeter the lettuce, the less nutrient dense that lettuce is. The more water it is. The bitter, horrible mixes of leaves, the little spinach leaves, those are where your nutrients are. And you know, because they don't taste nice. Sad but true. But you'll see how you've been guided to buy certain foods according to the sweetness of the tastes of those foods. Your berries, your blues and your reds are probably of your foods now in terms of immune system protection, cancer protection, gut healing, sugar containing but good sugar, good nutrients. These are the foods that you can eat. So what's nice is they give you something that's sweet but we call these superfoods. Superfoods mean it doesn't fill you. It's not a food that you can eat a plate from and say, oh, that was no lekker. It's something that is giving you more than the value of the calories of that food. So it's not filling you, but it's healing you. It's strengthening and boosting your immune system. It's keeping your digestive system going. They're full of natural fibers that are helping your body to work properly. These things can potentially help you to live longer, and they can help your brain work better. So there's another little list. There's examples of these things: alkaloids, anthocyanins, carotenes, flavonoids, isoflavones, lignans, acids, phenolics, phytoestrogens. Phytoestrogens is like natural estrogens that you get from plants. So a lot of people try that before they come to see me. They try some plant-like natural estrogen thing that you can buy in the pharmacies. And they do work. Too bicky. Sterols are things that act like steroids, like cortisone. They are natural anti-inflammatory things. Another interesting one, which isn't here, but go back to my greens. The greens contain something, especially kale, contains something called goitrogens. How many people have heard of goitrogens? I actually should write that down in the air. I'm dyslexic, so what does it look like to you? That's because you read it backwards, do you see now? So goitrogens are foods that naturally suppress your thyroid function. So I had a patient who saw me, and she had really bad thyroid function, but when I checked it, it was a bit weird because her body was doing fine. It didn't add up. There was no disease or problem. And when I went through her food lists, she's having kale tablets twice a day because somebody said kale's really good for you. But the kale is wiping out her iodine and something called thyroglobulin. So she's actually caused her low thyroid because of the food that she's eating. goitrogen. So any of you who've got thyroid problems, fatigue problems, go and look up the word goitrogen. So goiter, you might have heard the word goiter when you get a swollen thyroid. So goitrogen attacks the thyroid or the enzymes in your thyroid, goitrogen. And this does come from plants. So plants, you can't just eat as much as you like. There's a point where you can have too much of a good thing, because you must almost start to think of your plants as food. That's good too. But think of your plants as medicines. Just like you wouldn't take 5 Microdols if you had a headache, I don't think it's a good idea to have lettuce 3 times a day. Be careful of having tomatoes in every single salad you ever made. Yes. Cucumber, okay, yeah, most salads. Lettuce, well, really, it gets weird, eh? If you don't have lettuce and you don't have tomato and you don't have cucumber, it's like a pile of feta cheese, isn't it? With some olives. What do you do with that? That's not Greek. That's like something in the Mediterranean. It missed the land altogether. It's just, but be careful, because we tend to have the same healthy greens over and over and over. So variety. Don't even eat the same vegetables every day. Varieties, tastes, textures, that's your guide. How do I know if this is good for me? Is it different from what I ate yesterday? That's a good sign. Is my plate, let me get to one of my, does my plate look like a rainbow? Can I see all the different colors represented on my plate? Then you know you're heading in the right direction. This is one that, these are things that we find in our plants. Lycopene, resveratrol, flavonoids. There's your allicin in your soy, quercetin. You're finding that in your olives. This one, Brussels sprouts. Yeah, wait. Normally there's a little murmur of the ways. What kind of a program is it? You're all saying we're going to keep doing this program until he says eat Brussels sprouts. That's it. Then we're leaving. So next week is when I tell you how you can eat cupcakes again. So just stick with me one more week. I promise. So Brussels sprouts is unfortunately and arguably one of the healthiest foods you can eat, especially the ladies. So it contains indole 3-carbinol, which helps your body to get rid of estrogen. Now, that doesn't sound like a good thing, because you thought you need estrogen. You do, but you need picomoles of estrogen. You need so little estrogen that it's almost like if estrogen was a gas, you'd have to be careful of it. You need very little estrogen. And it has to be in your system for a little while, and then it has to be recycled or has to be out of your body. And indole 3-carbinol is the chemical that helps your body to break it down into an estrogen that's not toxic, that is not as potent as some of the estrogens you have, especially if you're on hormone replacement therapies or contraceptives. Indole 3-carbinol. Salicylic acid. So this is the willow bark thing. This is aspirin. In your foods. I don't have a picture of that. So, interesting. The more organic the food, the higher the nutrient value. If you are buying all your food at Checkers or Woolies, then you actually are eating things that you think are healthy that don't contain the nutrients that you think it contains. Probably not. It's never going to be bad for you. It's just filling a space on your plate, though. Do you know, an interesting thing is that not your liver, but an animal's liver, an animal's kidneys, an animal's brain contains, in some cases, a liver contains more nutrients than some of these vegetables that we grow. So organ meats, something I haven't added into this talk, but organ meats is a very nutritious source of nutrients, minerals, calcium, magnesiums, and all these things that we might not be getting from our foods. So if you have kidneys and liver, not popular. But again, that was something that we started to eat during World War II again. Even World War I, they said, because the animals were being slaughtered and sent to the front lines. The soldiers were eating the meat, the people left behind had to eat what was left. And that's when we started to eat offal. And that's when we started to eat the organs of the animals. But we've started to grow out of that thing. So maybe your granny did, and maybe you do sometimes, but your children look at that like, hoekom? What? So I'm sorry, yeah, what did that thing do in the body? Oh, it made the urine. That's like lekker, man. So this is how we're going to start choosing food. I want you to really start to think a lot about the grease and the oil and the water that makes your car's engine turn and run smoothly. It's going to make it run longer. It's going to keep it going. This is the stuff. Now, ladies, I don't know how often my wife checks the oil in the car, but it's probably not as often as you should, no? And I think the cupboard is probably the same. Don't forget the oil. This is a little list. You'll get this on your emails. But this is some of the advantages of having these foods. So there's a little list of all the white foods, and we see the anti-cancer properties, antibacterial, growth of cells, healthy growth of cells, keeps your stomach healthy, keeps your heart healthy, keeps your hormones balanced. So each of them have this little list. I must say the lists do look very similar, but they each have a different part of your body that they protect or fix or heal. So your body's constantly healing or recovering or nourishing itself. And this is what's doing it. That's all I'm going to talk to you about tonight. Is that enough? I think it was enough. So that's your homework for this week. Decide about nutrients. If you are worried that the nutrients that you buy, go and look at Wild Organics. Actually, I'm going to send an email out to you this week with where you can get the organic versions of things. Wild Organics is really good. They will source for you free-range meats, felt-raised, pasture-raised meats. They will source for you pesticide-free, fertilizer-free, non-GMO foods. They will even there's another company called ethical.com. They will deliver it to you or to a pickup point. And they can also get you something called raw milk. Have you guys do you know what raw milk is? Unpasteurized. Just out of the cow. Fresh. You don't get the cow, but just after it. So it's tested, it's clean, there's nothing wrong with it. But raw milk, interestingly enough, can be digested by people who are lactose intolerant. Because, it's something I learned recently, is that milk in a cow actually contains its own lactase. The enzyme needed to digest the milk is in the milk, but we destroy it when we pasteurize the milk. And then a lot of us think we're lactose intolerant, but that's because we don't produce the right lactose or the right amount, and the milk we eat has no lactose in it. The one kind of milk you need to throw away, we've already talked about skim milk and low-fat milk. We want the higher fat milks because it's not tampered with, it's not processed. Boxed milk and long life milk is poison to your body. It's stored in containers, it's metal containing, it's ripped free of any nutrient value. It does only one thing, and it makes your coffee go white. Okay? Cremora, it's like putting little bits of plastic to make your coffee go white. It's not worth the cancer. It should be called cancer, but they wouldn't sell so much. Creamy cancer, maybe a bit more. Eh? There's always So be careful about the stuff that you're adding without thinking to things. People for a long time started to think that brown sugar was healthier for you than white sugar. So do you know what the difference is between brown sugar and white sugar? Yeah, the clue's in the name. This is like, what could be? Wait, I've got it. Exactly, the color. Do you know what color salt is? No. It's not white. Salt is bleached to be white. Do you know what color rice is? No, not white. So rice is bleached. Rice is a dirty color. Have you seen wild rice? So you get whiter types of rice. Do you know what color a chicken's egg shell is? Not creamy. In America, their shells are white. They change the chicken's food and they bleach the shells because the American likes a white egg. So we still get a lot of yellowish eggs because we still, bietjie agter. But you watch, the white eggs will start to come in. They'll start to be more popular because white is clean. So we think clean, clinical, healthier. But be careful of food that gets adjusted. Butter is not yellow. Butter is a horrible color. I don't think you would use butter. It's a dirty color. So a lot of our things are changed for our convenience. Cheese is not yellow. Cheese is colored yellow because we like yellow cheese. No? Cheese is not yellow. That's all I'm going to ruin for you tonight. I think you've had enough for one day. Thank you very, very much. Eat healthy. Look after your grease. Go and get those engines going. Even if you stop eating everything else, get the engines turning over and get them working nicely. Get your speed up, get your heat up, start burning some fat. Great. Thank you very much, everybody.